Do Aquarians have feelings? Why do Aquarians think they are know-it-alls? Why do they have a God complex? Why do Aquarians just cut you out like you don't exist? Why does the Aquarius moon appear to be so cold and detached? If we look at the characteristics of the Aquarius energy, there's a lot of things about the Aquarius energy that makes it super detached. First and foremost, Aquarius is of the air element. It's a masculine energy. Being masculine is concerned with function, it's concerned with direction, initiation. It's already detached from the emotions. Besides that, the air element is all about the logical realm, the mental realm. This is compounded even more because Aquarius is a fixed air sign. Now, the fixed signs are dealing with security, structure. This makes them very rigid and inflexible. Once they come to an understanding of something, they hold to it and they're keeping it. And because of this rigidity, fixed signs are going to spend some time in the observation process, in the definition process, in order to come to some sort of a conclusion so that they can come to that structure that they're going to hold stubbornly to. Now we compound it even more when we realize that Aquarius is Saturn ruled. I like to call Saturn the Lord of Chains. Saturn is the Lord of karma, time, duty, structure, order, restrictions. Saturn energy is one of the most harsh energies. It's completely the polar opposite of the moon, the emotions. The moon is actually our first mind, our instinctive side, or our subconscious self. So when you overlay this super logical, detached, impartial, rigid, observational to the point of being scientific energy, very distant energy as well, this moon sign is hardcore. I could see why a lot of people think we are cold. At the core of the Aquarius moon, beneath every layer of their persona, everything that you relate to about them, there is a scientist with a clipboard that is observing you, formulating a judgment about everything. Our judgments are not biased. They're not coming from any sentimental, personal place at all. Coming from data collected over time. And this is one of the reasons why Aquarius moons won't necessarily get up and just door slam you right up. The Aquarius moon is going to take a little bit more time to observe and truly come to a real conclusion. Maybe the sun in Aquarius will do that. This is not about the ego. It's not a conscious decision. People who are more emotional, you're going to find that they like to expel their emotional energy. They want you to sit with their emotional energy. They may get even offended by the fact that you have an emotional barrier, that you're emotionally detached. They don't realize that they're actually in violation of your emotional needs when they do that, because that's the way how a lot of people tend to engage each other. I recall so many instances where people have come to me with their emotional storms, trying to get a reaction out of me, expecting you to be angry. They're expecting you to, have an outburst, to cry, or, something like that. But literally, this is just a data point. Their emotional outbursts is because of a lack of intimacy, okay? When they have emotional outbursts, 9 times out of 10, their problems are not their problems. So when you try to solve the problem to relieve their emotional turmoil or distress, it doesn't actually solve the problem, it makes it worse. The problem is that they want to engage you emotionally, and your barrier is causing a problem. They don't understand that them presenting themselves in emotional distress is actually going to put you in a more logical state of mind, not an emotional state of mind. They don't get that. You are in the state of problem solving to help them deal with their emotions. But they're actually 9 times out of 10, they're really just looking for emotional engagement. They're looking for empathy, sympathy. They're looking for you to, pat them on the back or give them some sort of emotional support. That's really all they want. If they vent, they really only want you to give them a reaction to the venting. They don't actually have a problem with their problem. So when you're dealing with emotional signs, you need not think about fixing a problem. You could probably have this discussion afterwards, like when they are more calm. You could probably, if you're really invested in this person, you could say, you want us to work on this, or, suggest to them, see if they need your help and your advice for fixing the problem. But just know that 9 times out of 10, the problem is not the problem. They really just want your emotional energy. That's really all they're looking for. More emotional signs feel their energy more than they're able to articulate. They feel it, but they don't understand the feeling. So they don't necessarily know the source of their problem. They can't articulate the problem. So when you try to rationalize the problem with them, it actually irritates them. It aggravates them more. Yeah, you have to be very sensitive when you're working with one of these more cardinal or emotional moods. This is going to sap your energy. So remember rule number 1. If this is not somebody that you are actually invested in, don't do this. This never applies to somebody who's directing rage at you. A lot of people who have a victim mentality, they like to engage people with that sort of energy. You only want to be dealing with people who are able to stop and go relax. They need to be able to go blow off some steam somewhere and calm themselves down. When you're dealing with people with emotional outbursts, it's important to remember that you can't address them from a logical frame of mind because they're not in a position to access their logical mind. And it's changing the angle of your observation. Instead of looking for the solution to the problem that they're speaking about, you're trying to figure out what their emotional need is. Maybe a bit difficult to find out what their actual needs are. Words of comfort can really help here. If you're more comfortable, you could do physical touch. That really does engage a lot of people emotionally. So like patting or stroking the thigh or the shoulder or the hand or even the back. Hugs are very good as well. If this is your intimate partner, then this can extend to physical intimacy, but just ensure that they are in an empowered state of mind before that engagement. Actually know what their emotional need is. It's good to give them words of affirmation, not so much trying to logically solve the problem, but actually trying to help them work their way out of that emotional state. It has to be somebody who is in a more empowered mentality. If they're more of a victim, they're actually going to be more triggered by words of affirmation. Not discrediting the experience that they're having. Affirm their skills, their potential, their possibilities, etc. These crash outs are all fear-based, so words of affirmations can really help somebody who's like spiraling down in their emotions. That as an Aquarius, you're already doing thoughtful things for them, but when you're looking for things to do, prioritize things that actually elevate their emotional state. A lot of times, if you don't actually have the bandwidth to address it, it's good to do those type of things along the way to alleviate their pressure without having to directly engage with it. Aquarians are the water bearers, not the swimmers. The way how we handle and operate in the emotional realm differs from everybody else. Aquarius being the scientists of the zodiac, at our core, we are instinctively and intuitively observing emotions. Aquarius moons have a heavy-duty emotional barrier, a wall that blocks them from the emotional world. We don't necessarily feel our emotions in the same way as they do. We're more able to process and articulate this feeling better than we're able to actually feel it, right? I have a preference for that because I'm able to deal with my emotions from the feeling side in a more controlled way, not so much a reactive, explosive, or irrational way. As an Aquarius moon, I find that a lot of times the logical side of the experience is processed long before the emotions. There are times that I don't even feel the feeling until long after. You know, maybe you disrespected me, I took the point down, but I didn't actually feel disrespected until long after when I processed, ooh, now it all comes through, you know. Yeah, there's a bit of a delay with the actual experience of the emotions because there's literally a glass wall between everyone else's emotions and our emotions. I don't think it's actually far-fetched to say that our emotions are also out there beyond the glass. Emotional wall of an Aquarius moon is for your protection. A lot of people believe that, you know, an Aquarian having a detached disposition is self-serving. Several pressures that are within an Aquarius moon at the same goddamn time. And it threatens psychological breaking. There's really only so much that one vessel can hold. Yes, an Aquarius moon has feelings. And their feelings are not as personal as you experience your feelings. Yes, an Aquarius moon is empathetic. And their empathy is not as narrow as how you experience empathy. Most other signs are experiencing deep empathy, whereas an Aquarius moon is experiencing broad empathy. Breadth, not depth. An Aquarius moon's feelings and emotions and empathy is stretching globally. They feel everything. They feel what you don't even see. The presence of that emotional barrier is to prevent overload. In their infancy, they had a couple of crash outs similar to this baby. If you don't know what I mean by personal feelings versus globalized feelings, check the comment section of that video. Grown adults in the comments are not able to relate or empathize with this baby because the baby's acting as if he knows Stitch personally. There are some adults who are able to sympathize with him because the sound of a child crying just causes that reaction. But they're not able to really understand why is this baby crying over what's going on a TV. This rules the house of friends and friendship. And for a toddler who has an Aquarius moon, they're friends with a lot of elements of life that are not humans. A little Aquarius moon toddler could actually crash out about something going on the TV screen, or in a book, or, you know, a bed of flowers that died, or a tree that got cut down, or, you know, them discovering that their chicken friend is literally on their table. You know, that's the sort of things that literally will cause Aquarius moon children to crash out. Over time, this child gets a bit overburdened with all the emotional stimuli that happens all the time, and so they dissociate. That's what happens. They create an emotional wall sort of like a TV screen, and they place everything emotional within that screen in another room of the house. When they want to engage with that, they go sit in front of that TV screen, they turn it on, they can switch the channel, and they can turn it off and go on with their merry lives. A lot of the cardinal moon signs find you offensive because you don't want to be entangled with their emotional expulsions. Literally try to shatter the glass that is between us, not realizing that that glass is not only protecting me, it's actually protecting them as well. If you're another moon sign, especially a cardinal moon sign, I need to let you know that there is no way that an Aquarius moon is going to drop their emotional defenses if you're not in a rational and balanced energy. Like so many other signs, emotional outbursts and extreme displays of emotions tends to allow them to enmesh, or they tend to I don't know. That is an actual violation to an Aquarius moon. That is a repulsion because you now have lost control of yourself. The only way this glass is going to come down is if you're in a very balanced emotional state, okay? Don't go to an Aquarius moon trying to tug at their heartstrings, trying to trigger them emotionally, because when you're doing that emotional outburst, they're literally looking at you with the clipboard like, point taken. You're not going to get what you think you're going to get. They're going to be in problem-solving mode or shut down mode. If you are in serious violation of the emotional boundaries of an Aquarius moon, they're probably going to just cut you out. That is what it is. This is something that a lot of other moon signs don't understand because their biases and their sentiments, kind of rule their behavior. It doesn't matter how much I love you. It does not matter how much I'm attached to you emotionally. If you are seen as a severe liability, a loose cannon, or anything that is going to really disturb or threaten to shatter that glass, you are going to get cut off. The actual decision-making part is not governed by emotions. So you need not worry about them, being so attached to you that they can't cut you off. They will. They will cut you off. A lot of these sentimental, emotive signs are going to try to shatter that glass because they think that that's going to make the Aquarius feel. The glass actually is what helps them to feel. If you shatter the glass, what you're going to do is create a monster. You are going to create a person who has no feeling for anyone. What you're actually creating is a villain here. And you're not going to be able to predict the extent of their cruelty. Y'all need to look up some of these Aquarian moon villains, y'all. Despicable. The emotional barrier is to help an Aquarius moon cope with globalized feeling. That it's very difficult for us to get emotional support, even from a therapist. Regardless of what emotional state you're in as an Aquarius moon, whether you're actually distraught, you're at your wit's end, or you are just trying to logically process something, or you're trying to feel your emotions, it's actually quite difficult to find a therapist or a friend or anybody who is equipped to assist you with dealing with your own emotions. I personally just process my emotions myself, and it does demand a lot of time, which is another thing that offends a lot of emotional people. I've actually went to therapists and it was absolutely useless to me. The sort of discussions that were progressive in their office, was just my regular everyday musing. A lot of therapists are used to people who are very emotive, breaking down in their office, just offloading. They're not used to actually speaking to somebody who's very rational with handling their emotions. It's almost like, why are you here? Are you sure you need this? They don't necessarily know how to deal with an Aquarius moon. I have found that certain Scorpio moons and Pisces moons and even Aquarius moons are so much better for me when it comes to going into my emotions. Quite likely the sun sign will have a part to play as well, but it's going to be kind of rare for you to find people who are able to actually give you emotional support. In terms of dealing with people who are more emotional, I'd say it's best to ensure that they fully understand your need for detachment and distance and solitude when you're dealing with your problems. Because if they don't actually come to terms with that, they're actually going to be piling on additional drama and stress on top of you the whole time you're trying to process something that is taking a lot of your bandwidth. Gauge whether or not this person can understand your emotional needs. If this person is going to violate your emotional needs at every turn, then it's probably not worth it. If you are in the whole martyrdom mindset, it's not going to work well for you. But there needs to be some sort of a compromise here, and if that person is not willing to put in work as well, then it's probably not worth your time. Aquarius moon does not value you. They won't consider you at all. They wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't offer you help, advice. They wouldn't talk to you. It's it's perfectly fine to not talk to anyone, you know. If an Aquarius moon is offering their advice, information, or whatever, it's because they feel a duty and responsibility to help you. That's really what
Even
it is.
the astrologers do not understand Aquarian energy. When we bring it to the moon, a lot of people be thinking about God complexes, and you know, y'all do not. So-called God complex is the pressure and duty to institute change, upgrades, elevation. The problem is that this pressure is not experienced by a lot of people. So at some point, your Aquarian is gonna leave you alone because they respect your boundaries as much as they respect their own.
Exposed to social engagements and maturing, I've come to find that, yeah, being a loner is so much more beneficial for you as an Aquarius moon. If you are going through your whole social phase as an Aquarius moon, where you have large friend groups, very intimate connections with multiple friends, you just essentially find yourself in situations where you're drained all the time. A lot of times the engagements that we as Aquarius moons have with our more emotional friends and family is an act of self-sacrifice. You know, you're literally forcing yourself to entertain or engage them in particular ways that are draining. They don't actually know that most of their engagements with you is an act of service. A lot of people may consider this compromise to maintain certain relationships, but what you're going to find is that the response is going to be one of resentment. I chalk it up to our communication style, it being very straightforward, not very personal, or, you know, a lot of people will think that because we're speaking from an objective perspective, more of a generalized perspective, that we're talking down on them. There is a reason why Aquarius moons are considered to have a God complex. You know, even astrologers hold that particular mindset. There's basically two descriptions for us. It's either going to be God complex or detached loner. It's after these types of engagements that Aquarius moons tend to withdraw into themselves and just leave people alone. They are completely fine, disengaged and detached from the rest of the world. If you're an Aquarian moon, you're likely basking within this period. Us Aquarians really like the internet, we like social media. We're able to observe human behavior from a distance without any direct contact. Most Aquarius moons are gonna be perfectly fine, but if it is that you have a more social sun sign, then you might still be one of those people that's a little bit iffy.
The term for the greater good is loosely used, but a lot of people don't actually understand, or even they don't have the capacity to extend their mindset to what the greater good looks like. An Aquarius moon actually feels the pressure of what the greater good is.
As an Aquarius moon, you're going to realize that the pressure of performing certain duties to the collective is better utilized on a more general basis. From a detached perspective, you know, there are so many ways you can be involved to help the collective as a whole without being entangled in actual personal issues and so on, with personal relationships. Naturally, you're going to have your core group of people, whether your family, whether it's a friend group, intimate partner, whatever the case may be. You know, just be very selective. If you are into astrology, I'd suggest to look for people that have a little bit of a touch of Aquarian energy, at least a little bit of a touch of Aquarian energy or Saturn influence, because there is such a wide gap between even Capricorn and an Aquarius. So if you're dealing with people who have a lot of energies at the bottom of their chart with no Aquarian energy, you're likely gonna struggle.